On August 14, 2021, Christopher Harvey dialed 911 from the home he shared with his ex-girlfriend, Rodrica Hill. He claimed that he just got home and found his girlfriend gravely injured, and that the back door of the home had been left open. The evidence, however, painted a very different picture. According to the evidence, Christopher Harvey was not happy with the breakup, and he was not happy that Rodrica started seeing someone else. The state eventually charged Christopher Harvey with Rodrica Hill's murder, claiming that he murdered the young mother due to jealousy. His interrogation has gained popularity due to his commitment to the story that someone else did it, although he admitted that he was mad at Rodrica because she had brought her new man to their home. So this is Christopher Harvey's trial for the murder of ex-girlfriend Rodrica Hill. Representing the state are prosecutors Brittany Fox and Andrea Diaz. Representing the defendant, Christopher Harvey, are Assistant Public Defenders Brooke Brewer, Amy Lim, and Dina Duncan. At his interrogation, Christopher Harvey seemed unhinged, and his defense story seemed implausible. Let's see if he has a better defense at trial, with the help of 3 members of the excellent local public defender's office.
Yeah, that was mine. Once we get them to the screens, we lose the audio. We lose court audio. The only audio then is through that computer. I mean, you might be able to get by with that, but it's kind of hard to hear. I think Miss Diaz needs to install some updates on her computer or something, because it takes her a lot longer to actually log in than...
Well, my computer went belly up a couple months ago, so I was the lucky recipient of the new one. So
so I guess there actually is a computer discrepancy there.
Do you want...
I'm kind of wondering where he's going. Yeah, you want to try the HDMI thing?
Oh, good. Yeah, keep switching to from HDMI. But...
That's what I think.
Volume, Amy, can you hear me? Yes. Judge, do you want to
Yeah, can you? So hers should be muted? Or...
You?
Just the microphone, right?
And then that's the audio. Okay. You want to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me? So that works. Miss Diaz, can you talk?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so now we can't hear her.
Because then I connected to the audio.
You can lower the microphone level in your audio if it's too loud.
On the court system audio or the Zoom audio?
The Zoom audio.
I can do that.
No, I think it's when the judge talks and it's on my audio too. That's where we get the echo from.
There just can't be any objections for that part of the testimony.
I'm not sure that there will be. It's a fairly straightforward witness, at least.
All right, Ms. Diaz, can we hear you again?
Yes, I can hear you.
Should be able to. Your audio is up. But then-
Do you want me to unmute from the HDMI splitter?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I lowered that. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, if it's too loud. It's so quick on this. And lower this.
Just lower it.
Yeah, these speakers, the audio should be lower than one or the other. And it's got no idea of the vibration.
Okay, Ms. Diaz, can we hear from you again?
Okay, bring it. We'll just say,
How about now?
I'm muted, just as an FYI. So do I need to stay muted if?
It's a little echo.
go ahead and talk again.
So there's no way to put my This is
Hello? Andrew, can you hear me?
I don't know if that doesn't like it's the chord volumes are down.
Cool.
So Ms. Fox, can you say something?
Hello? Andrew, can you say something? You talking? Yes. Can you hear us? All right, how about now? Can you hear us okay?
You want muted?
Can you speak?
Want me to say?
I'm unmuted now.
I think if you talk to the mic, Ms. Fox, The issue is just hearing Miss Diaz.
Testing, testing.
Andy, can you talk? Yes.
Seems to be improving.
Yeah, I think he's like balancing everything out. Instead of like, I was kind of envisioning whatever the source of echo would be muted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know when I've done it in the past, we've just had to play the mute game where
So how did you do that? You muted the HDMI
I
channel?
think it was, I can mute my microphone, my Zoom mute.
I mean, is there a way to tell your computer to not put the audio onto the HDMI?
Is there a way I can do what?
So when you plug in the HDMI, it wants to pull the audio off your computer. Is there a way to tell it?
I think the problem would be that it won't go through the courtroom audio. I thought that was the whole issue of I mean, I can try that, but I thought that we wanted the courtroom audio HDMI. I can switch the speaker though. Now I've switched it to just my courtroom audio. I mean I'm sorry, my computer audio. But the echo is still going to be there. In the past, I know that...
So the echo is from your microphones on?
well, let me try that, yeah. Good idea.
No, you're switched off.
I don't know how to do that. No? Try to see if I turn my computer microphone off.
Yes.
Okay. Then that here. I'll do that for you. So I just turn this off.
Yeah.
Stop the HDMI. Okay, does that work?
Andrea?
I don't know that that's the problem. I think the problem is, because now I'm coming out of his computer and the courtroom audio. I think that it's the same echo that I had on my computer.
And there's no way to do the HDMI off my computer for this?
Yeah, I think if you turn your computer microphone off,
My
we'll
Zoom
solve
mic?
the issue.
I have a microphone like this. talking about that microphone.
Well, that won't be on. That won't be, that's not selected.
Yeah, man, it's the desktop, right? I don't have a microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, but in that, you see on this, in the setting.
So, but if I mute myself, it's not echoing anymore, right?
Right, and that's what I've done in the past. We've just
So
kind
if
of
I have
played
to,
the mute
to
game.
talk to the witness, then I unmute myself.
And I would mute myself.
Okay, yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
I'll just keep myself muted.
Because I mean, I'm not hearing the echo now, but I don't know if Andy
Yeah.
can hear us.
And if the witness is prattling on, I can just mute the witness too. So I still have the control of the meeting.
Right.
You shouldn't have to use the microphone here. This is the microphone you should be using. That's what you're setting for the audio.
Yeah, that's what I thought I had, but it didn't.
So my guess is Andy cannot hear us anymore. No reaction.
Good guess.
So she can't, but,
I have my computer microphone muted right now.
oh, so yeah, then we're back to where the only way she's picking up any audio is through your computer mic. Seems less than ideal.
This is, she's ripping in the remote witness.
Yeah, that would be a remote one, like
Yeah.
something.
Andrea, can you hear us?
No. Ms. Diaz, can you hear us now? Yeah, so the only way she can hear us is I'm unmuted and we're echoing. I don't understand that. All right, well, how far off are we here? So you have Dr. Clark, Ms. Fox?
Yes, sir.
How long is that?
Maybe an hour?
Yeah, so we'll take a break then and see if we can.
And that was going to be a request anyway, just so we could make sure Mr. Williamson was on.
I don't know.
If it's just you,
And there's no way to do the HDMI through my computer because I have this huge HDMI
Andy,
splitter
can you
here. Can't
Okay.
no,
can't make it
Got my
full
mic
from
from
mine.
back.
that's what the input.
One problem.
It doesn't come off this computer. That's the input. Actually, this is being fed from that as an output. No, you couldn't have an input and an output. This is working for, I have no idea why. As long as it's set up here, the same way you know if you're the host. And you've got the speaker set up. There's a USB DAC that runs through the system. They heard this.
What happens when you sit in a suit outside anywhere in the courthouses and you come and ask you questions?
The microphone, again, is coming through this little box here and going back into the system so that your microphones can be heard and everybody else's microphones can be heard. Same way. And that's fine. When you introduce a laptop, your laptop has an issue with the audio, you have to turn the microphone off. So the audio can be echoing.
Sometimes that gets.
And they still all should be set up.
Have you want to try you hosting this Fox? And then I join?
Can you change me to the host, or would I need to set up the?
I think I can do that actually.
Maybe you could try. I don't know. Maybe co-host.
Yeah, you're host.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to try now?
I don't know. Let's try, I guess, Ms. Diaz, can you hear it? So you can hear us now? Only when I'm unmuted? Is it different? So you can hear just fine like this? Oh.
Oh, hang on. Okay.
All right, now can you hear me? So I don't know that it matters, Ms. Fox, the host. You just have to have one mic on. I think it's still going through your mic, I suspect.
To me, the echo sounds less now.
Yeah, no, I think there's far less. I don't know if there's any echo now. It's just this mic.
Okay. Well, then that works for me. If I can stay host, it seems like that solves the whole problem because I don't hear any echo now.
Yeah, I think I think where it was before, I think, but she couldn't hear us at all because we were both muted.
Okay.
I think that's what was happening before, but.
But Andy, you can hear? Yes. Okay. I think that works.
All right, let's shut this down, I guess.
Okay. Hopefully everything won't fall apart if we ever.
I'm sure it will, but.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to be in the meeting?
It's an hour from now. It's not the first witness. Or second witness.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have one real witness and then back to fake witness. Okay, are we ready to go back on the record? I mean, that was all on the record, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, the echo is fun to read.
More fun to type, I imagine.
And was digital saying they need to jump on the Zoom or the way we're doing? Okay. All right.
Okay.
That was yesterday's problem.
Got it.
All right, let's go back on the record. State of Florida versus Christopher Harvey's 2021 CF 2146. Defendant's present in the courtroom with his counsel, but Miss Lynn is not here. She.
Yes, she just stepped out. She's here.
Okay. Okay. Are we ready to bring the jury in?
It's ready.
Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
Defense has a brief request preliminarily for the court. I don't see anyone on the state side, but we ask that if anybody does come in, that the court provide them with the same instruction that Your Honor did the other day about any strong reactions. We do have concerns about that since we are going to be viewing autopsy photos, and so that would be our request for the court.
None of the next account is going to be in here for the autopsy.
Okay. And I was kind of thinking yesterday you had this victim advocate. Like I would assume that it'd be her role to kind of
Yes, sir.
tell them, hey, this is what's on the horizon. If you can't stomach it, don't be in the court.
Yes, sir. And she has a list with each witness and when those photos are going to come up, and it was discussed with them, and they made decisions about who they were going to stay for and who they weren't.
Can you just clarify who is next kin? That whole side of the courtroom? It seemed like there's 15, 20 people.
Yes, sir. I mean, I consider them all next of kin. It's aunts, uncles.
Okay. So everybody
Dad.
will be out for the autopsy
Yes.
part.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
No, Judge.
All right, let's bring the jury in. Please be seated. State your next witness.
Dr. Anthony Clark.
Good morning, sir. Can I have you pause right there? So, see our clerk, raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, and then just have a seat there.
Thank you.
And state when you're ready.
Good morning. Could you
Good morning.
please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name?
I'm Dr. Anthony J. Clark, C-L-A-R-K.
And how are you employed?
I am currently employed as the Central Regional Medical Examiner located in the Macon Crime Lab in Georgia by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Did you previously work for the medical examiner in the Tallahassee region?
Yes, I did.
Right, and what district was that?
I-
What district was that?
District 2,
And how many counties did that cover?
10.
Right? Did it include Leon County?
Yes, it does.
Right? How long were you working in the Leon County Medical Examiner's office?
I worked there from August 1st, 2007 to February of 2023.
Right. Could you give the jury an idea of your educational background and training that makes you qualified to be a medical examiner?
I obtained my bachelor's of science degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I did the 2 years of animal research at MIT. Then I was accepted to the Jefferson Medical College, where I attended for 4 years. I graduated from the college and went to New Britain General Hospital, where I did a 2-year general surgical internship. And then I traveled there to Hartford Hospital, did 4 years of anatomic and clinical pathology. From there, I went to Atlanta at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office in association with Emory University, did 2 years of forensic pathology fellowship. And then I finally got my first job. I was the Southwest Regional Medical Examiner for the GBI Division of Forensic Science in Moultrie, Georgia. And then I transferred down to Tallahassee and worked in District 2. And board certified in anatomic and forensic pathology. I do have medical licenses both in Georgia and Florida.
All right. And in total, how many years have you been a medical examiner?
Going on 31.
Right. How many autopsies have you performed in your career?
Over 7,500.
And can you explain, you mentioned that you were board certified in forensic pathology.
That's correct.
What is forensic pathology?
Well, pathology is the study of animals, plants, humans, looking for what disease, the effects of disease and trauma have on the body. In my area of expertise, I do what's called an autopsy, an examination of a decedent, by doing external, internal examinations and determine the cause and manner of death.
Okay. What are some of the causes and manners of death that you are allowed to pick from or opine?
Well, we have 5 manners. There's natural, of course. There's suicide. There's homicide. There's undetermined. And then there's accident.
Okay. What about causes?
The causes could be multiple. We could have somebody die from natural disease, call it coronary atherosclerotic disease, gunshot wound to the head. If it was a suicide attempt, then that would be a suicide. Or somebody self-harming themselves. If the gun was shot by somebody else, gunshot wound to the head, it could be a homicide. If the gun was dropped and accidentally discharged, it would be gunshot wound to the head, accident.
Okay. Have you had a chance in your career to testify in court as to your findings in an autopsy?
Yes, ma'am.
Approximately how many times?
Several hundreds.
I would tender the witness.
Any questions?
Yes, Judge, just briefly.
Yep. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Clark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you on any Florida review boards?
Yes, ma'am. I was on several while I was in Florida.
Oh, go ahead.
I was on the child abuse review board for the state and locally.
I was blanking on what I was doing. That was the main one I was on.
And there have been a number of other review boards that you were on, correct?
Yes, I just remember the domestic violence for the local area board I was on also.
And as part of your review boards, what does that entail exactly? Are you peer reviewing? What does that involve?
No, we come from different, there's a whole team of us from different disciplines that come together to discuss cases, like in a domestic violence case. What were the conditions that brought this around, caused the death? What facilities or services are available to help individuals that get into those situations, and trying to draw up some plans and ideas and formulate them into a document that would help other people know how to handle these cases.
And have you received any awards in your career, Dr. Clark?
A few, a long time ago. I received the Levine Scholarship back when I was a medical student. That gave me an opportunity to participate in medicine as a nurse, to get an idea of what nursing was about. And they sent me about yearly for about 10, 15 years, questionnaires on how I still felt about nursing and et cetera.
And have you had any publications?
I've had a few. Those are back when I was in college.
And do you have any requirements to continue with continuing education hours?
Yes, ma'am. And a certain number of hours each year, every 2 years for both my Florida and Georgia license to maintain my licensure.
And have you ever had any challenges in complying with those hours?
No, ma'am.
Judge, we don't object to Mr. or Dr. Clark being an expert.
The court will accept him as such. State, if you want to continue.
Dr. Clark, did you perform the autopsy of Rodrica C. Hill on August 15th, 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And what time was the autopsy performed?
We started at 09:45 hours.
Can you explain to the jury what's the general procedure when someone comes in for an autopsy? What steps do you take?
Well, generally we get a call regarding the death like the night before, the day before. We get the information, basic information, what might have happened. The body's placed in a body bag. Usually it's sealed, and then that's shipped to the medical examiner's office. We have our own morgue and cooler placed in the cooler. And then at 9:45 that morning, we pull the body out of the bag, pull the bag out of the cooler, and document whether it's sealed or not, labeled properly. Then we open the bag up and we start taking pictures. It's the first thing we do to document how the individual came to us. There may be sheets on the individual. There may be medical devices on the individual. They may be dressed. They have jewelry. We like to make sure we document everything to show how it came to us. And of course, at the time of the autopsy, in particularly a case like this, we're looking for any damage that might have been done by a firearm to the clothing, the jewelry. Make sure that any of the medical stuff isn't covering something up that we may have don't want to miss.
All right. What's the next step after you do that?
We start, after we've documented what's on the body, we start removing all the items of clothing and medical devices or whatever else may be on the body and documenting the individual. We'll measure them, we'll weigh them. We document their hair color, eye color, any evidence of scars or surgeries or tattoos. I'm also at the same time looking for any types of injuries. Injuries? Some kind of injuries, possibly. And looking for injuries on that individual and documenting those. We do a lot of photography.
Okay. Do you also do an internal exam?
That's correct. We will open up the head, neck, chest, and abdomen. If we have an injury to the outside of the body, we want to see whether it injured the internal organs.
Do you take x-rays?
Yes, in firearm injuries, we like to take an x-ray to see where the bullets are, if they're still in the body. A lot of times the bullet will fragment or the jacket will separate from the lead core, and we may see them in two different spots, so we want to make sure we know exactly where they are so we can get them more easily. Sometimes there's a lot of blood in the cavities, which will make it a little bit more difficult. There's a lot of damage, which makes it more difficult, so the x-rays are very important.
And if you do recover or find a projectile, is it removed?
Yes, it is. It's collected, cleaned, and then photographed, and then released to the law enforcement agency that is in charge of the investigation.
And is a law enforcement officer there with you while this autopsy is going on?
In this case, yes, Detective Christmas was there.
Okay. So you mentioned taking photographs. Do you also do diagrams?
That's correct.
All right. What's a autopsy diagram?
It's a pre-printed diagram, female, male, and it just gives me a way to help you also get a perspective of the gunshot wounds. Generally, if I have one or two, I don't usually make a body diagram, but once it gets more than two, I usually like to make a body diagram.
Sorry, I just dropped all the photos. That's why I usually
Oh, no.
prefer electronic evidence. Wait a minute.
Excuse me.
Okay. And did you do an autopsy diagram or diagrams in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
All right. What areas of the body did you do diagrams for?
One diagram is the entire body, showing front and back, and it shows the different gunshot wounds. And then I have a diagram that gives 4 views of the head, and this shows 2 injuries.
Okay. Did you take photographs in this case?
Yes, I did.
Have you previously reviewed photographs and taken a selection from your numerous photographs of those that would aid the jury in their understanding of the injuries sustained to Rodrica Hill?
Yes, I have.
Right. May I approach?
You may.
Dr. Tuck, I'm showing you what I have pre-marked as State's Exhibit 35A through 35L. And then see the diagrams in front of you. I also have State's Exhibit 34A and 34C.
Yes, I can say that those diagrams are the ones are my diagrams. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I would move 34A and B into evidence.
No objection.
4A and B are admitted.
Whoops. Okay.
It's 35A through double L, a fair and accurate depiction of the autopsy photos that you believe will aid the jury's understanding in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
I would move 35A through double L into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 5A through double L are admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Dr. Clark, do you want a laser pointer for that diagram, or will you be able to point?
Laser pointer would be good.
Okay. For the photographs, they'll be on the screen, and I have a cursor up there for you.
Okay.
I approach.
You may.
permission to publish states composite 35.
You may.
So Dr. Clark, what are we looking at in 35A?
As I said before, the body comes in a body bag, and generally it will be sealed. And in this case, you can see the red tag that's sealing it, and then there's a one of our tags on there that you just see in the backside of it, but that has the decedent's name on it.
And 35B?
So this is after we've opened the bag. We like to take a document how the individual came to us. You'll see that it goes from the top of the head down to the mid-thighs, and generally shows how they're dressed, the amount of blood on the body. The hands are in what's called Tyvek handbags to retain evidence on the hands if we need to do anything more with the hands.
And 35C?
And this is the second part of the overall from the waist down to the feet to show how the lower half of the body presented.
Right. And as it relates to Ms. Hill, you mentioned you obtained measurements, so height, weight, that type of thing
That's
from
correct.
a decedent. What was Ms. Hill's height and weight?
We measured her at 65.5 inches in height and weighed 180 pounds.
Okay. What is 65.5 inches converted to?
5 foot 5.5.
And what was her age?
She was 31 at the time.
So going to 35D.
Okay, 35D is what we call the identification photograph. We like to show who the individual is. We've cleaned off any blood or debris that's on the face. We try to get a good shot, and we put an identifying ruler underneath the chin to show the case number, the date, my initials.
C?
Well, as I said before, we take
Sorry,
X-rays.
35E.
Oh.
My apologies.
We take X-rays to determine where the bullets are and if they're still in the head. And what you see here is this is the top of her head here. This is the right side. This is the left side. You can see that inside the skull there's some fragments here. The bullet has gone through some hard bone and has broken up somewhat. So there's one set of bullet here. And then there's a pretty well intact bullet right here, though it's left some debris behind it. So you get a sense that this debris trail is coming from left to right here. And in this one, it's much harder to tell, but it is coming from the back right side into the skull itself. And then if you look over here at the top of the left shoulder, there's some gunshot wound injuries to the left shoulder. You can see that there's small radiopaque fragments here and here. And those are fragments from the bullet as it was breaking up going through the shoulder. You can see that these are much wider or more dense than the bone itself. If you look at where is it? Lost the mouse. The clavicle here, you can see that this is much denser, and these are bullet fragments.
I want to turn your attention to the diagram behind you before we start talking about the gunshot wounds. And let me first ask you this. In total, how many gunshot wounds did she have?
I documented 4 separate gunshot wounds.
Okay. Are we going to talk about this later, that 2 of them could potentially be related?
That's correct.
All right. And when I say related, what does that mean?
That there may have been a continuation through one part of the body into another part of the body. Sometimes, classically, somebody gets shot in the arm, goes through the outside, comes out the inside, and goes back into the chest.
Okay. Would that be consistent with an exit or an entry, an exit, and then a re-entry?
That's correct.
Okay. And you classify those as distinct gunshot wounds, even though it could have come from the same bullet?
That's correct.
Okay. When you number your gunshot wounds, is there any rhyme or reason to it?
It's just for the ease of description. It does not tell you how severe they are or what sequence they occurred in.
Right. So I think the first gunshot wound that we're going to be looking at is the one to her cheek.
We want to put up the other body diagram then.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to approach? Can I approach, Judge? And is that your gunshot wound number 1?
Yes, you'll see it right here on the left cheek area. in my diagrams, I actually put a red dot to show it's a gunshot wound entry. A retained bullet is a bunch of little dots in a circle, and then an X is an exit. So in this case here, do you all see that? There's an entry right here. So this was my gunshot wound number 1. I usually start the head and number as I go down from front to back. So this is my gunshot wound number 1 here. And what happens is, if you look at the right cheek, and you'll see it in the photographs and in the x-ray, the bullet is right underneath the skin about right here. Those are my little dots I was telling you about.
Moving to photo 35F.
Okay, so this is the left cheek. You see the left ear here, the nose, the eyes. And right here is the gunshot wound entry here. And what you see is there's a pattern here, an abrasion that is unusual for an entry gunshot wound unless there's something overlying the skin that's in close contact with the skin. So as the bullet goes through that tissue or cloth or whatever, it actually causes a slapping of the skin that causes this abrasion. So I'm calling this a shored exit, meaning that it's braced up against something, and as the bullet went through, it slapped the two layers, in this case skin, together to cause this type of abrasion. But right here, this hole right here is gunshot wound number 1, as described in the autopsy report.
And I'm going to just go to 35G. That's a zoomed in close-up photograph.
Right.
And when you say shoring, can you show us what you mean?
Again, with let's say my hand is against my cheek here, and if somebody shot me through my hand, it would go in the back of my hand, come out the palm of my hand, but as that skin's coming out, it does this. So it slaps it very hard, and that slapping motion causes an abrasion on my palm, and it would cause an abrasion on my face as the bullet continues onto my cheek.
When you're looking at gunshot wounds, are you able to determine, in some cases, a range?
Yes, ma'am. As a forensic pathologist, we typically look for what we call muzzle to target range. Various characteristics of the gun injure the skin in different ways.
And when we say range, does that just mean distance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you able to determine a distance or a range for your gunshot wound number 1?
I stated that this was an indeterminate range. I couldn't tell the distance because we do have, I believe, an intermediate target, something in between the muzzle of the gun and the skin surface that has distorted my ability to do that.
And what are some things that you would be looking for to determine range?
We're looking for, if you're looking at a contact gunshot wound, we will have called a muzzle stamp, muzzle abrasion that looks like the muzzle of the gun itself, a contact wound. In a contact wound, you have searing on the edges of the wound. You have soot deposition within the wound. You may have the soot deep within the tissues itself. Near contact, we get more spread of the soot around the wound itself. There's no muzzle abrasion. As you come out a little bit further, you may get the gunpowder separating a little bit. And as the gunpowder strikes the skin, it's called stippling. It's actually not a burning, but it's actually a abrasion of the skin. And as you come out further, you may just get a little bit of soot and some stippling further out to spread out even further. And then after you get out to about 18 to 24 inches, the only thing that's really striking the skin at that point in time is the bullet.
Okay. I'm going to move to 35H.
Okay, 35H. You can see this is the right side. Here's the right ear down here. I don't have real good control of this. Okay, right there. Right ear here. And then right in the middle of this angle of this ruler, you can see that there's a red discoloration and there's actually a little bit of a lump there. And that's where the other bullet, right underneath the skin there, that's where you recovered the bullet for this case.
Okay. And so how would you classify this between exit or entry?
That's a near exit.
Near exit. And it belongs to the entry that we just looked at?
That's correct, gunshot wound number 1.
Okay. And can you show that on the diagram?
And that would be this right here.
Right. And is one thing that you look at when you're conducting an autopsy the track of a gunshot wound?
Yes, ma'am.
And what does that mean?
The bullet generally goes in a straight line through the body unless it hits some very hard bone. It can deviate somewhat, but for the most part, it goes through a straight line.
Okay. What was the track of this gunshot wound from the left cheek to the right?
As in the autopsy report, the track is from left to right, her left to her right, very slightly up and very slightly back to front.
Okay. What injuries or damage did this bullet wound cause?
Of course, the skin and soft tissues on both sides of the face. It fractured multiple molar teeth, went through the tongue, and then a large amount of hemorrhage in that area.
Okay, and when you say hemorrhage, is there a layperson term for that?
Blood,
Right.
bleeding.
Did a box of teeth accompany the body?
Yes, it did.
Oh, sorry about that. We're not there yet. Were you able to recover a projectile from that near exit on her right cheek?
Yes, this is one of the projectiles from the right cheek. You can see it's labeled gunshot wound number 1, and that's the fragment we recovered.
And this was 35I. And 35J?
And this is just a close-up to show what the details of it.
And 35K?
And we flipped it over, sealed gunshot wound number 1. You can see that the copper jacket's still on it. You can see the rifling on there. That's the pattern that the firearms people look at to determine what gun might have fired this bullet.
All right. And did you provide that projectile to Detective Smith?
Yes, I did.
All right. I think you should have it in front of you. It's going to be listed as State's Exhibit 32.
Yes.
Right. Is that the projectile that you recovered from Miss Hill's cheek?
I don't know because it's in this package.
Okay. Do you want to open it and see if it has your packaging inside?
Okay, you got a pair of scissors?
Sure. Okay.
You bet.
Okay. This is the envelope that I used to put the bullet in. You can see the envelope in the picture itself. Do you want me to open up the protect?
No, sir. It has your markings.
Yeah, it has my markings on it, and it has my evidence tape with my initials both on the front and back of it.
Okay. And so that is the projectile that you removed from Miss Hill's right cheek,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And 35L, just a close-up of what's inside that envelope.
That's correct.
All right, 35M, what are we looking at?
Okay, this is the individual's tongue. I don't have control of the mouse. I don't have control of the mouse.
Oh, sorry, it might be a poor connection because I've got it connected to my computer to make it work. But
There it is. All right. So you have a ruler. I have my ruler in here with the case number. This is the tip of the tongue here. This is the right side, and this is the left side. You can see where the bullet entered the mid-tongue here, went through the tongue, and came out the right side.
Right. What about the bottom right-hand corner, or I guess the left-hand corner of the tongue, but the right-hand corner of our photograph? What's that?
That may be a small lead fragment or a piece of bone. I'm not sure which.
Okay. So looking at 35N.
Okay, this was a small box that's documented in the autopsy report that would accompany the body. It says fragments teeth, and within it you can see that there's a lot of blood clot here and multiple teeth.
Did you say multiple teeth?
Yes.
And 35O.
What we did was we broke up the big pieces of blood clot and all that to show that there are teeth fragments here and teeth.
Right. Is that consistent with being a result of the gunshot wound that was through her left cheek and into her right cheek?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And you mentioned that it caused molars to, I guess, be damaged or loose or removed.
Fractured, yes.
Fractured, okay. What is the survivability of a gunshot wound like that?
To me, in my mind, there is a good possibility, a good probability that the person could survive that. I've seen cases where people have been shot in the face like that and have been able to survive. I mean, it's a lot of blood coming out. If they get help, keep their airway clean from inhaling the blood to cause issues, and then going through a bunch of surgeries, that is survivable.
Okay. Is it something that someone in that condition would be able to stand up, to move around?
Yes, ma'am. I think that it's my opinion that this would not have resulted in loss of consciousness, and it would not have prevented somebody from doing something.
Okay. Would it, I mean, I guess, what could have prevented it from being effective? Would it have been a painful?
Well, yes, this would be very painful, and again, very dramatic in terms of the amount of blood that's going to be coming out of the mouth, and the individual's probably bent over coughing or spitting out blood, trying not to breathe it in.
So going to 35P, are we looking at your gunshot wound number 2 now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What can you tell us about this?
On the back right side of the head, we had to shave the area because you can see how dense her hair is, and then she had these hair extensions, but there is a gunshot wound to the back right side of the head, and it's right here.
And is that shown on the diagram as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was that an entry wound or an exit wound?
That is an entry wound.
How are you able to tell?
Just by its characteristics, that if I try to push the edges of this wound together, it causes a dog ear because there's actually tissue missing. Also, you'll see that there's what we call circumferential marginal abrasion all along in here. And this is when, as the bullet's sliding through the skin, the sides of the bullet are scraping the skin, causing that this one came in pretty perpendicular to the skin surface itself. And then underneath this, we'll see that the right occipital bone has inward beveling, which gives you the directionality of the bullet going through the bone.
Right.
So as the bullet goes into the bone, it causes inward beveling. As it's coming out of the bone, it causes outward beveling.
Okay. And did you see that inward direction in this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay. What were you able to determine a track or a direction for this?
yes. I put the track in, yes, in the autopsy report, back to front, her back to her front, slightly right to her right to her left, and slightly down.
Okay. And so if someone, if we're talking about where a shooter might be to inflict this wound, can you give us an idea of where that might be?
I can't tell you where the shooter's going to be, but the muzzle of the gun would have to be to her backside.
Okay. So she would have had to be turned around, not facing the muzzle of the gun.
That's correct. Well, the muzzle has to be to the backside of her head.
The back of her head.
That's
Okay.
correct.
What about distancing or range for this?
It's very difficult in this case because of the density of the hair and the amount of hair. Any other particles that come out beside the bullet are going to be filtered through that, and then there's a lot of bleeding, so it tends to wash away.
What damage did this gunshot wound do?
This resulted in fractures of the skull. It went through the right cerebellar hemisphere. It went through the pons, which is the main cardiorespiratory center of the body, that once you put something, damage that, you stop breathing, you stop, your heart starts beating. And it went into what's called the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, which is at the base of the skull. Sphenoid bone, which is at the base of the skull.
Right. And you mentioned, I think, one of the areas it struck was a place that would cause instantaneous unconsciousness or death?
I'll call it death, yes ma'am.
Okay. So this was a fatal gunshot wound?
Yes, sir. Yes ma'am.
And it would have been kind of like that
That's
she would
correct.
have... Okay. All right. 35Q, were you able to recover a projectile from the gunshot wound to the back of the head?
Yes, these are some of the fragments we collected from the skull. As you saw in the x-ray, it was pretty well broken up, and we were collecting the major fragments.
35R.
This is just another view of them. I think we spread them out a little bit and flipped them over.
All right, moving to 35S, and I think I'm going to need to come up and change your charts. May I approach?
You may.
Okay, so can you explain to the jury what we're looking at in in 35S?
Is that the body diagram?
Yes. Oh, the photograph is on the screen.
Okay. This is a photograph. We have flipped her over to better document the injuries to her backside. You can see that there are a large area of damage here. We have on the outside of the shoulder here, that's actually another gunshot wound entry, number 3. And the gunshot wound number 4 entry is right here. What you see, these large big defects here, those are only hitting the skin, and that's most likely from fouling from the gun itself. As the explosion occurs, the inside of the barrel or the bullet itself will break off little pieces or chunks of metal, and that can come out and it's called fouling. And particularly if the ammunition is not that good or it's an older weapon or something like that, that can cause that to happen. So we'll see these big chunks here. The other possibility, it was shot through something else, and like a door, and there's wood splinters coming out flying. That's another possibility. But what takes the intermediate target away is that we have what's called stippling, which is all these little fairly homogeneous punctate abrasions, which are from the gunpowder itself. So the gunpowder is hitting the skin. Now, she was wearing a tank top, but this did not interfere with the deposit of the stippling on the back of the left shoulder here.
Right. And what is stippling a sign of?
Again, stippling is when the burning and unburned gunpowder are coming out at speed and striking the skin and abrading it. Not burning it, but scraping it. Abrasions.
When you're looking at stippling, does that help you determine better a range?
Yes, ma'am. It's looking within inches of the surface, the muzzle to the skin surface.
Okay, and when you say within inches, is there a higher range, like 50 inches, or are we talking a lower range of it?
I'm talking about 18 to 24 inches is how far are we out. You see stippling on the body. The only way to really determine this is there are 2 gunshot wounds here, and they may have overlapping stippling patterns. I couldn't quite delineate it because the overlap is so good. I'm not sure. I think that both of these were within a closer range, but I can't tell you for sure. But the only way to get a really good stipple pattern is to get the same gun, same ammunition, and use various targets at different distances to get how much spread you would get with that particular weapon.
So as far as stippling, you gave a range of 18 to 24 inches. Could it have been closer than 18 inches?
It's my opinion that it is. I measured this out to be just over 3 inches in maximum dimension by about 1.5 inches. And to my mind, that would be something that would be within, an inch or 2 or 3 inches from the body itself.
So the muzzle of the gun for the wounds that we see in 35S would have to be 2 or 3 inches from her back.
It could be further, but it depends on the muzzle of the gun, the type of ammunition, etc.
Okay. All right, now when we're looking at 35T, can you show us your gunshot wound number 3? Which of these 2?
Gunshot wound number 3 is this one right here.
All right, and is that an entry or an exit?
That's an entry.
Okay. Can you show us the track, and we can use your diagram if you want first, and then go back to the photos?
Okay, well I can use the photograph here. You can see the hole, and again there's a piece of skin missing, so it's going to make a dog ear. What you notice about this abrasion, though, is notice that the abrasion is more prominent on this side here. And that's because the bullet is not coming in directly to give you an even abrasion. It's coming in like this. So one side of the bullet is scraping more of the skin as it goes in. So just looking at this marginal abrasion here, you get the sense that the track is going to be going this way. And that's what happened here. The bullet entered here, traveled along the shoulder, top of the shoulder here, just through the soft tissues, did not enter the chest, and you can see on the side of the neck here that there's some kind of injury. It did re-enter the neck here.
Okay.
And I guess I could show the body diagram.
Sure, and yeah, I'm going to move over to the re-entry.
Okay, so right here, gunshot wound number 3, entry, is right here. Of course, this is not exactly like on the body. We got our generic woman, different build. We went through the shoulder, and you can see that it exited here, gunshot wound 3 exit, and in gunshot wound 3 re-entry into the neck. It went across the neck, and gunshot wound 3 exit on the right side of the neck.
So So going to 35U, can we
Okay.
better see the re-entry in this?
Yes, here is the gunshot wound entry, travel, exit, and re-entry. Now you're going to get some abrasion here because we have her stretched out like this, but if she's standing or has her head like this, the skin folds occur. You got two pieces of skin lying next to each other. That bullet goes between them. When you open them up, each side will be abraded. Okay, so remember that. Skin fold, bullet coming in, will abrade each side, and that's what's going on here. And then you have the re-entry here.
35U. Oh, I'm sorry. 35V.
Okay, this is actually the right side of the neck. You can see the head up here. Her left shoulder, or, excuse me. No, I'm sorry. This is the left side of the neck. This is the exit coming out here. Again, skin folds, and then re-entry here. And that's just a close-up. Right here is the defect. On an exit wound, a lot of times you get what's called stellate or irregular type of flaps, because what happens is the bullet comes out, it does this. So you may get irregular flaps, and then if I had a steady hand, you could bring those flaps together and sew them together and they would disappear. There's no skin missing. So that helps in that. There's a little bit of an abrasion from the skin fold and then the re-entry, and you can see the marginal abrasion where the bullet's coming in. It's coming in at a slighter angle here, more prominent on this side than on this side.
And what does that tell you?
Again, that the direction of the bullet is going to the left, to the right, excuse me.
And 35X.
Okay, now we're on the right side of the neck. This is the final exit for gunshot wound number 3. You can see the hair here, back of the neck's here, throat's here, and you can see the exit right there. Again, with skin folds, that if you can fold the skin up properly, you can see where it would abrade the skin as it's coming out.
Okay. What was the track of this gunshot wound?
The track, as listed in the autopsy report, is left to right, slightly back to front, and slightly up.
Okay. And when you say slightly back to front, where would the muzzle of the gun need to be for that type of track?
Well, you got to remember the shoulders. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, because they're very highly mobile. So whenever you hear these directions, this is the body, what we call standard anatomic position. So she's lying flat on the table, hands forward, head neutral position, toes pointed down. And so when I say left to right, that means from her left to her right. And in this case, the muzzle of the gun had to be to her left side. Maybe, well, just to the left side, that's all I can say.
Okay, so it could have been either lateral to her or slightly behind, but lateral to her.
Yeah, it really depends on the shoulder position.
All right. 35Y, just a close-up of the exit.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Going back to the other side of her left shoulder, 35Z, what about gunshot wound number 4?
Okay, you've seen 3. This is 3 here. Now 4 is here. Again, there's a defect, the marginal abrasion, then we got the stippling and fouling around it. And what this did was travel from here and exited here. So this just went through the skin and musculature of the top of the left shoulder.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to, going back to gunshot wound 3, what were the injuries sustained from gunshot wound 3?
Gunshot wound 3 would just enter the soft tissues, meaning the skin, fat, and muscle in the shoulder, and went through the back of the neck. Again, she had a little bit more neck, so it went through the soft tissues, did not injure the spinal cord or column, did not hit any major blood vessels or nerves.
Right. Survivable?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would it have caused blood loss, hemorrhaging?
Of course, hemorrhage and pain.
Okay. Would it have rendered her unconscious?
Not in my opinion, no.
All right. As far as the exit, if something exits, will you be able to recover a projectile?
No, there was no projectiles along that track.
Okay. And we've talked about the projectile fragments that you've recovered versus a projectile itself. What happens to a projectile when it goes through a human body?
It can start to break up, particularly if it's a hollow point or it's just a lead bullet, like from a 38. It hits that soft tissue. Even though it's soft tissue, it still breaks up somewhat. If you remember from the x-rays, I said there were some small fragments on the left shoulder. Those probably came from gunshot wound number 3, just small fragments along the track, and they're really not forensically important. They're hard to find and all that. But you saw the one that went into the skull. It hit bone and broke it apart.
While I'm getting the next set of photos up, can we take a look at your gunshot wound number 4 on the diagram?
Okay, so gunshot wound number 4 is the next one in. This is the gunshot wound for entry, and then we go on the flip side, and this is gunshot for exit.
Okay. So looking at, let me give you them, not that, there we go. Looking at 35 double A, what are we looking at?
Okay, so this is the front of the left shoulder. You can see the defect here. Really no marginal abrasion, but we do have this unusual crescent-shaped abrasion, and it looks very familiar from gunshot wound number 1.
Can you show us the back of her shoulder? Is that the entry, original entry?
Yes, this is the entry here, and it travels straight across and comes out here.
Right. What damage, if any, did that initial entry and exit do?
Again, all this hit was soft tissues, the skin, fat, and muscles did not enter the chest.
Okay. Would that initial entry to exit have rendered her unconscious?
No, ma'am.
Would it have been fatal?
No, ma'am.
Okay. 35 double B, what are we looking at?
Okay, this is where I felt like gunshot wound number 1 and gunshot wound number 4 are probably related. As you can see, here's the exit 4. Here's the entry 1, and you see this crescent-shaped abrasion around there, which because of rigor mortis, I can't really get her cheek down there, but we try to get as close as we can to show that there were very similar patterns. So I would call this a shored exit, meaning that it was braced up against something, and I would call this a shored entry because it was braced up against something. So they were this area of the cheek was most likely braced up against the front of the shoulder here.
You've mentioned that the exit and then the entry look similar. How are you able to distinguish if it's exit or entry if they look similar?
Oh, again, with this is definitely an exit. Again, if there's no tissue loss, can close it up, no marginal abrasion, nothing around it. We definitely have an entry here. I take a probe, push it through the holes to match them up, so that's definitely an entry, this is definitely an exit, and this is definitely a re-entry.
Okay. You also mentioned, I think you said rigor mortis.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
That is stiffening of the body after death. Generally about 30 minutes after death, you'll start noticing in the fingers and in the jaw, and then over time, the whole body gets stiff.
Is there a time limit for how long it takes a body to become in full rigor mortis?
Generally about 12 hours it takes for it to come in full rigor, and then the next 12 hours it stays in full rigor, and after that the rigor starts to break down because of decomposition. The muscles start to get mushy, and you're able to pull it apart fairly easy.
Okay. Is there an 8 to 12 hour window with rigor mortis?
Well, it's not rigor. It's not 8 to 12 hours. That's more with the livor mortis.
Okay.
The livor mortis is the settling of the blood to gravity. So if you're lying on your back and you're there for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, if you turn somebody over, you'll see that the blood's starting to settle. It looks like a red-purple, red-pink discoloration, except in areas of pressure. And then if you leave them there for 6 to 8 hours and you roll them over on their stomach, you still may have a little bit of a livor mortis, but the blood is still fluid enough that will go to the front surfaces of the body. So you come back an hour later, you'll flip the body up, and you see that the livor is actually on the front surface of the body, maybe not as deep as it should be because there's still some fixed to the backside. Fixed to the backside.
Were you able to do any kind of analysis or have an opinion as to livor mortis for Ms. Hill?
Well, I saw that livor mortis was on both sides of the body, front and back. The front portion of the livor mortis was faint, but still visible.
Right, and what does that mean?
I felt like she was probably in some kind of prone position for at least 6 to 8 hours.
Right. So going to 35 double C.
Okay, this is again a further attempt to try to match up the wounds. You can see that it looks like a pretty good match there.
All right, and again, in the bottom left-hand corner, is that going to be the first entry?
This is,
Or is that the gunshot wound 4?
I think this is 3 here because of the abrasion, and 4 is here.
Okay, and so is 4 would be the entry to the little, on the top of her shoulder, first exit, and then re-entry into the left of her cheek?
Correct.
How would someone have to be positioned to cause this effect to happen?
Again, I felt like her cheek was probably, her shoulder was up and her cheek pressed against her shoulder like this.
Okay. Would you consider that to be a defensive position?
Well, it's one of those things that if somebody's doing this, see something come up, that's a typical motion that could be called defensive.
Okay. And 35 DD?
Yes, that's about as close as we could get it, but you couldn't really get a good picture of the exit of 4 and the gunshot wound number 1.
So as far as this particular entry, exit, re-entry, the picture that we're looking at in DD, that's just as close as you could get it. In your opinion, where would it have had to actually be when it occurred?
Well, touching.
Touching, completely flush.
Right.
So similar to this.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I have one more question for you on this. So this is the one that we looked at originally that entered her left side of the cheek and did the damage to her teeth.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And we mentioned that was survivable.
I said it was survivable.
Yes.
Yes.
So this entire track, when we look at the entry, exit, re-entry, near exit, that entire track was survivable?
Yes, ma'am.
Moving to 35EE.
Okay. One of the things we do again is examine the head, and what we've done here is we made an incision behind one ear, gone to the top of the head, and gone behind the other ear, and we peel the scalp forward and we peel the scalp backwards. And this is actually, her face is underneath the scalp here, and this is the right side here. And you can see that there's some kind of bruise going on here. And this is separate from the gunshot wound itself. There was no fracture of the skull in this area, so this is some kind of blunt force trauma to the right side of the head.
And we're looking at the interior view. Was it visible from the outside of her face?
Oh, well, with the density of her hair, we did not see it, but when we peeled back the scalp, that's when we saw it.
Would you be able to show the jury on the diagram exactly where this was located?
It would be in this state of my hand, right here.
Right. Is that above her right eyebrow?
Yes, it's more the forehead side of the head, about where my hand is right here.
Right. What would cause this type? You said blunt force trauma. What does that mean?
Some kind of impact, whether, I'm not sure, any kind of flat surface.
Okay. But not from any of the gunshot wounds?
That's correct.
Is this a whole separate injury?
That's correct.
35FF. And let me kind of preface this with a question. Did you look at all of her hands to see if there were any signs of defensive injuries or other injuries to anywhere else on her body?
That's correct.
All right. Aside from the injuries we've spoken about, the gunshot wounds, the bruise to the head, were there any other fresh injuries?
There was a scratch abrasion on her left back, very superficial scratch abrasion.
Other than that, nothing else?
Nothing else.
Okay. And we're looking at which hand right now in 35FF?
Well, we should document is the back of the right hand. This is after we've taken the bags off, the evidence bags off, and we just want to show if there's any injuries to it. You can see that there's some clotted blood, but once we wipe this away, there are no injuries to the back of this right hand.
And why is her hand closed?
That's part of the rigor mortis process.
35GG?
And we're trying to get all the fingers to show the knuckles, and you can see across the 4 fingers and knuckles that there's no injuries, there's just some clotted blood.
35GG?
We're showing the tips of the fingers. Again, we examine the fingernails to see if there's any debris under the fingernails? Do we have to take fingernails? And in this case, no. The answer is no. There's no injuries to the hands.
And I'm sorry, for the record, this is 35 HH. 35 II.
And this is just a better picture of the thumb and the thumbnail to show that, again, there's no damage.
35 JJ.
Okay, we do the same type of thing with the left hand. No damage to the back of the left hand.
35 KK.
You can see the knuckles pretty good here and most of the fingers. No damage.
35 LL.
Thumb side, clotted blood on the wrist there. Otherwise, no damage.
So given that you mentioned, I think, the 2 entries to the shoulder and the entry to the face were all survivable, can you give the jury an idea of maybe not necessarily an order of how the gunshots would have had to happen, but what gunshot would have had to be last?
Objection. Outside the scope of his expertise, he already testified to the fact that he wouldn't be able to testify to the sequential order.
Overrule. Go ahead.
In my opinion, the final gunshot would have been to the back right side of the head. If that hit the pons, that would have caused almost instant death.
Have you had the opportunity to look at some of the scene photos to see some of the blood and where she was ultimately located?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And was that consistent in aiding your opinion that the last gunshot wound would have had to be to the back of the head?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
You have one room where there is a large amount of blood, clotted blood, teeth, where the initial gunshots were taken. I could see where these may have been the initial gunshot wounds to the shoulder, to the head, back of the neck. Again, none of those should have been incapacitating or cause loss of consciousness. And then she runs out of the room, whether she collapses at that point in time just from fear, exhaustion, blood loss, or whether she's standing up, I don't know, but then there's a gunshot wound to the back of the head that would have been immediately incapacitating.
Right. As far as, I think you mentioned that the area where there was a large amount of blood and teeth fragments, would that have been consistent with the gunshot wound that was to her face and into her right cheek, which caused the teeth fractures?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to determine a range for the entry wound that we looked at to gunshot wound number 4?
I called it intermediate. Again, that's our range that we use from further than a half inch out to 18 to 24 inches.
And that's this one on the outside of her shoulder?
Yes, that's number 3, yes.
Right. So both what you call 3 and 4, the 2 to the shoulder, were the same intermediate range?
Yes, ma'am, because of the stippling and the fouling.
And you mentioned 18 to 24 inches, but for these, did you think they were closer than that?
Well, that's our outer limit, the 18 to 24 inches, so I'm thinking it's going to be less than that, maybe just 2 to 3 inches.
Did you, based on your analysis, opine a cause and manner of death?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
The cause of death, as listed in the autopsy report, is gunshot wounds of the head, neck, and left shoulder, and the manner of death is homicide by firearm.
Why did you include the gunshot wounds to the left shoulder as well as the head? I'm assuming you mean the cheek or the back of the head?
Both.
Okay. Why do you include the ones that you believe are survivable as part of the cause of death?
Well, there's multiple gunshot wounds. It's all one assault, so I just felt comfortable putting it down there.
Were the track of all of these from back to front?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Can you explain that?
Well, with her in an anatomic position, 1's very slightly back to front, 2 is slightly, or from back to front, 3 is slightly back to front, and 4 is back to front. So The muzzle of the gun, to my mind, would have been more to her backside, behind her more than, behind her and to the left more than front or to the right.
Right. Do you also, during an autopsy, go through each of the organs, each of the bodily systems to ensure there isn't a co-cause of death or another cause of death?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Were there any other causes of death other than the gunshot wounds?
No, ma'am.
Judge, if I could ask you to read joint stipulation number 1.
Okay. So when the parties agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact. You must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for you to decide. In this case, the stipulated fact that you must accept as true is the decedent in this case is Rodrica Hill. Exhibit 52 is a photograph of Rodrica Hill.
I'd move 52 into evidence pursuant to the stipulation.
State's Exhibit 52 is admitted.
Permission to publish.
You may.
I don't have anything further for Dr. Clark at this time.
Wait, what do you? Oh, okay. You pass it. Okay.
Yeah, publishing.
Any cross?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Go ahead. Say, can I just get you to pull that? Yeah, thanks.
Hi again, Dr. Clark.
No,
You were not able to determine a time of death, correct?
that's correct.
And you don't have any opinions about the time of death.
No, ma'am.
You couldn't make any determinations as to who fired these gunshots.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Couldn't make any determinations as to when the gunshots were fired.
No, ma'am.
Could not make any determinations, as you stated on direct, as to the sequential order that the gunshots were fired.
I have opinions.
But you couldn't make any determinations.
That's correct.
You testified about a wound on the back of Miss Hill's head, correct?
That's correct.
And this wound did not appear to be a contributing cause of her death, right?
Oh, you're talking about the scalp bruise?
Yes, sir.
That's actually in the right front of the head.
And then there was another one that we were looking at the, yes.
And then there was a gunshot wound to the back right side of the head.
Yes, sir. The wound that was the blunt force trauma.
Right.
That was not a...
Right. I don't know whether that came from a blow or a fall.
The autopsy was on August 15th, 2021, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, at the autopsy crime scene, personnel are present, right?
That's correct.
And in this case, it was Detective Smith.
That's correct.
Detective Smith was there, and he collected a bullet and some fragments that you testified about.
That's correct.
He also collected some clothing.
Yes, ma'am, I believe it did.
There were also a number of swabs that were taken.
You'd have to look at his records. I don't think I have that in my information.
I believe it's in your autopsy report, if you'd like to take a look and refresh your recollection.
Okay.
It should be on page 7, line 9.
Okay. These are the things that we collected for him.
And if you want to just read them to yourself,
Okay.
and if it refreshes your recollection, just let me know.
Okay.
Does it refresh your recollection?
Yes, it does.
About the different swabs that were taken at the autopsy?
Yes, we did in a sexual assault kit.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
You may.
Thank you. So I want to ask you about these different swabs that were taken. They were taken from various parts of Miss Hill's body.
That's
Right? And so such as head hair,
That's correct.
pubic hair,
That's correct.
major orifices of her body.
Yes.
So would that include like eyes, ears, nose?
No, it's mouth, vagina, and anus. We
And,
also take breast swabs, thigh swabs, neck swabs.
and you did mention nipples, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was taken here as well.
That's correct.
There were also 10 fingernail scrapings,
That's correct.
10 fingernail clippings,
That's correct.
4 oral swabs,
Yes.
2 neck swabs,
Yes.
the 2 breast swabs that you testified to.
Yes.
The vaginal swabs were 4 of them.
That's correct.
Thigh swabs were 2 of them.
Yes.
4 rectal swabs.
Yes.
Thumbprints,
Yes.
and a semen test is also listed.
Yeah. Yes.
And you yourself don't do the semen analysis.
No, that's something that Chris Smith had.
And that's because all of these swabs are taken and they're sent to a lab. Is that right?
This what now?
All of these different swabs, including the semen test, they're sent to a lab for analysis.
Right. This evidence was released to the Leon County Sheriff's Office, and whether they submit them or not, I don't know.
And so it would be through that procedure that there would be a determination as to whether or not there was semen.
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Regarding time of death, why can't you determine a time of death?
Because there's so many factors that can cause variation in the what we typically call the postmortem changes in an individual. Somebody who is dead outside in the Florida hot sun in August, directly in the sun, decomposes much quicker than somebody maybe in an air-conditioned room at 72. It makes it difficult. So we can give some ideas of body positioning at the scene, checking the Riger and Liver at the scene, and then what I do in the autopsy room is after the fact that the body's been handled quite a bit.
Is that included in the autopsy room after it's been refrigerated and some time has passed?
That's correct.
What does refrigeration do to Riger or Liver mortis?
It slows down the decomposition process, so it makes the Riger and Liver not happen, holds the Riger longer, it doesn't allow the Liver mortis to happen as quickly.
Is that another reason why you typically don't do a time of death? That's not a common thing in your practice?
Not anymore, no ma'am.
All right. As far as the Riger and the Liver, I think you previously mentioned that with Liver mortis, it can give you at least an hour range of when that fully sets in, as well as Riger.
That's correct. Most of the people that come in are found immediately or so, and they're on their backs. So there's no Liver mortis on the front. In this case, there was a faint Liver mortis on the front. To my mind, it would suggest that at being in that position, a prone position of some sorts for at least 6 to 8 hours, minimal.
6 to 8 hours from the time the gunshots were fired and she was killed?
From the time she was lying there dead. I don't know what time the gunshot was fired.
So at the time of her death, it would have had to be 6 to 8 hours. So let me rephrase this. Would it be consistent with counting back approximately the time law enforcement arrives and you saw the photo, 6 to 8 hours back from that?
Right.
Would be, in your opinion, an approximate time of death?
Approximate time, yes ma'am.
Okay. What about Riger mortis? What's the time range with that?
Again, it burns for the first 12 hours and it holds steady for 12 hours. And then if you introduce refrigeration, it can last longer.
All right. And so with Liver mortis, if the police were to have responded around 1 o'clock, would around 5 a.m., in your opinion, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon, would 5 a.m. earlier, I'm sorry, let me scratch that and start over. If the police responded and located her body at 1 o'clock, when you saw those photos were taken, approximately 1 o'clock, if we counted back 8 hours from that, what time would that be?
Well, I have an issue with that because I don't know whether the police laid her out flat immediately. if they document that she's dead in place, they tend not to do anything and process the scene.
Okay.
So if from 1 to 5 would be an 8-hour period. But I don't know how long she sat there before they laid her out and would change the livor mortis at that time.
Okay. But that was the 8 to 12 hour period.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So 5 a.m. could have been included in that range, but we could have gone a little bit further back as well.
That's correct.
You mentioned also about the blunt force trauma to her right top of her head. Would that have been consistent with falling and hitting her head on the floor or a door or something like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I don't have anything further. Thank you, Dr. Clark.
All right, thank you, sir. You can step down. Dr. Clark, you can step down.
Oh.
And at this time, we'll just take a break. And so again, please don't discuss the case, do any research regarding the case, and we'll get back going in 10 or 15 minutes. All right, please be seated. Anything for the record we need to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're off the record.
Can I retrieve the exhibit?
Yes, please. And yeah, we won't start without you, probably.
Well, it's happened. I used to start without you. I used to take comfort in that fact.
All right, State, do you want to set up the Zoom?
Yes, sir. I just texted Mr. Williamson.
All right, you want to take 5 then?
Yes, please. But if you want to go ahead and, is the Zoom meeting open on your end?
It is now,
Okay.
but it'll just be in the waiting room until I actually admit them.
Okay. You want to I can log in, and if you want to make me the host, that way I can let him in.
Yeah, do that.
Take a break.
I'll make you co-host.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Williamson's in there now.
Oh, okay, good.
And I was muted last time.
Yes,
I can't remember anymore.
yes, he was muted, and I can still hear you if you talk to the microphone.
Yes.
All right, good morning, sir. Can you hear me okay? Can you say again? I can't hear you, but the volumes are almost up. Try again.
Might be because I'm not hooked in.
No, I can't hear you. Well, we're gonna change the audio around a little bit here, so just give us a couple minutes to play with it on our end. But as of now, I can't hear you.
No.
He's talking, Miss Fox, but I can't hear him.
Try now.
There we go. All right, and so now I'm muted. Can you still hear me, Mr. Williamson, when I'm muted? Okay. Mr. Jansler, I'll leave mine logged on if you want to play with any of my settings. I think we have a workable solution right now.
Which audio? My audio is just working. Oh, okay. What? Well, it's been working. Yeah, it's been working with how it says now.
Or digital?
They don't need to be. That way.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mr. Williamson, we're just on a little bit of a break to get this set up, and then once the jury's back in, the judge will swear you in, and we'll get going.
I'll do it. Mr. Williamson, can you hear me okay? I just want to clarify you're in a position with nobody else around you, is that correct? Do you have anybody else around you or any notes around you or anything like that? I said no. It looked like you said no. I couldn't hear it. It looked like you said no, but I couldn't hear it. All right, and then you're also free from distractions. Nobody's like a dog or a kid's not going to run in halfway through your testimony. Okay. Oh, are we ready to go back on the record?
He's ready.
All right, so this is 2021 CF 2146, State of Florida versus Christopher Harvey. Defendant is present in the courtroom with his counsel and other counsel present as well. Anything before we bring the jury back in?
Do you mind if I stay here while I'm questioning?
That's fine.
So I don't mess up anything with the setup? Okay.
Actually, so defense, do you want to join the Zoom, just if you're going to cross-examine so that he can see you?
Sure.
Or do you want to, we can move the computer to the podium and you can do it from there potentially?
That would be fine. Maybe that would be more efficient since we're not logged in and don't have to worry about the testing.
Can we do it from the podium, Ms. Fox?
Yes, yes. Hopefully.
I know I said you could sit down, but I think
That's okay.
you'll need to sit up. And just one more sound test. Mr. Williamson, you can hear me okay? I understand it's a little muffled because my audio is going through Ms. Fox's computer, I think. But if I stay close to the mic, you can hear me here? All right. And for defense, I'd just ask you to, if you're going to registered objection, make sure it's into the mic because it's trying to get all the way to the little computer over there.
Yes, sir.
All right. But if there's an objection, Mr. Williamson, just give me a moment to rule on it before you continue, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and bring the jury in, and I'm going to swear you in, Mr. Williamson, from here, okay? And you can see me okay, right? You can see me okay? Yes. All right.
Mr. Williamson, it might just be awkward because your picture is on a screen that's separate from my video. So for me to look at you, I have to look, it looks like I'm looking away from you, but I'm looking at you.
Oh, is that because he's pinned on yours? Or something?
Well, it's because I've got exhibit stuff on mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
rise. Great. Okay, please be seated. State, could you call your next witness, please?
State calls Keith Williamson.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this witness will be a Zoom witness. As you can see, that it should be on your displays there. Can everybody see that okay? All right, and if there's any trouble hearing it once we get going, do let me know that. But I'm going to go ahead and swear in the witness because we're on a Zoom format. So Mr. Williamson, can you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, Ms. Fox, you may commence.
Good morning, Mr. Williamson. Can you please state your name for us and spell your last name? How are you employed? Are we currently interrupting your vacation with this trial? All right, is that why you can't be with us in person? All right, we appreciate you still accommodating us. What do you do for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement? How long have you been doing that? Can you give the jury an overview of your education and your training that you have that enables you to do that position? What training goes into that digital evidence section before you can do casework on your own? Is the laboratory... Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Continue. How long have you been doing casework on your own after being certified? Okay. You mentioned a few words that I want to ask you for some definitions. When it comes to cell phone forensics, what is Cellbrite? What is, so you said it extracts data from cell phones. How does it do that? Is there some things that Cellbrite may not be able to pull, or is it always 100% of the time a complete extraction? What about deleted items? Okay. What about gray key? I don't know if you mentioned gray key. And are you trained on how to use Gray Key? Yes. Okay. I'd like to turn your attention to the analysis that you did in this case. Did you receive 3 phones for analysis? Yes. All right. So I'm going to show you 3 items that have already been introduced into evidence. I'm going to start with what's been introduced as State's Exhibit 6. State's Exhibit 12. I'm getting my numbers all wrong today. State's Exhibit 12. Do you recognize this?
Yeah.
How? Is that on the yellow label that I'm showing you?
Yeah.
All right. Are your initials and date somewhere on here as well?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is State's 12? Are you able to tell? Okay, sure. And is this your item number 2?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Next, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 13. It's already been entered. I'm going to flip it over to show you the FDLE label. Can you tell me if you recognize this?
Yes.
All right. And how do you recognize it? Right. Does it also have, Does it also have your initials and seal?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm showing you yours. If I'm not, let me know. Okay. All right. And what is your item number 4, which is State's 13? Yes. I'm going to show you State's 14. It's been introduced. I'm going to flip it over to show you the FDLE label. Could you tell me if you recognize State's 14? Okay. Same by the FDLE label. Are your initials and seal also on it? Okay. What is State's 14, your item 5? So I'd like to start with States 13 and States 14. So your items 4 and 5. Can we start with item 4, which is the black UMX cell phone? Can you tell me what analysis you performed on that cell phone? What does that mean? Is that, again, like you were talking about earlier, maybe due to make, maybe due to model? Okay. Were you able to obtain the phone number of the black UMX cell phone, your item number 4? What was the phone number of that phone?
He looks frozen. We'll give it a minute to resolve there.
Oh, you're back. You froze up a little bit. Were you able to, if you were saying something, we didn't hear it. Okay. Are you able to give us the phone number of State's Exhibit 13, your item number 4? Okay, and what is that? Okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. That'll lead me into the Cellbrite reports that I'm going to introduce. So when you extract data from a phone, you mentioned Cellbrite previously. Does Cellbrite extract data and put it into a readable format that investigators can go through and look at? All right. What types of things are extracted in a Cellbrite report? Right. And can certain reports be created from that raw data that's located to pull out the call logs, to pull out text messages with certain numbers, that type of thing? All right. How can you give the jury an idea of how big of a file is a Cellbrite extraction typically? Okay. So it's a significant amount of data that has to kind of be parsed through to pull out relevant information. All right. I want to, you've previously had a chance to review the device information from your item number 4. Is that right? All right. And is that one of the things that Cellbrite can pull out, the device info, as far as a phone number or the device model, things like that? All right. Is the device info you reviewed for your item 4 that I have marked and previously showed you as 43A a fair and accurate depiction of the device information from that phone? I would move 43A into evidence.
Objection to that?
No objection, Judge.
State's Exhibit 43A is admitted.
All right. I'm gonna move some stuff all in at once, and we can talk about them all together. Have you also had a chance to review 43B, which is a text with a phone number that basically says, you know, here's your phone number for this phone? I would move 43B into evidence. Or, I'm sorry, that's not 43B.
Judge, can I have a moment to take a look at it?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It is 43B, I just don't have that. Oh, yeah. It is 43B, Judge.
No objection.
43B is admitted.
Did you also have a chance to look at the call log from your item number 4, the black UMX phone, for the dates of August 13th through August 14th, 2021? I would move 43C into evidence.
Any objection to that?
No objection, Judge.
All right. State's Exhibit 43C is admitted.
All right, and finally from this extraction, were you able to look at some text messages to a phone number, the text messages from the phone on August 14th, 2021.
Yes.
I would move 43D into evidence.
Judge, I don't believe that Mr. Williamson has reviewed any of these items. I think his sole role is that he's extracted the data from everything and then it's turned over to other personnel to actually do an analysis on it. So I don't know that this is the remainder of these items are properly entered through him.
Stay.
I provided all of these to him in advance for him to review and confirm they came from the phones. I can ask him that question.
You asked if he had text messages generally, I think, though.
No, what I provided him in this exhibit. I previously sent him all of these reports to verify they came from each phone he extracted.
Okay. Can you just re-ask? I just didn't.
Sure. So, Mr. Williamson, all of these reports that I'm talking about, have I previously emailed them to you for you to take a look at to confirm the reports were pulled from your extractions of these phones?
Yes.
All right. And the reports that we're talking about now, the device information, the call log from the dates I listed, the text message with the device's phone number, and the text messages from August 14th, 2021. Did you look at those reports that I sent you and confirm that all of those were pulled from the Cellbrite of the black UMX phone that you analyzed?
Yes.
Defense?
Judge, could we go side by side?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Judges are understanding that we're unaware of when these items were sent for him to be able to review them, and if it was after deposition, then Ms. Brewer didn't have an opportunity to ask him about any of these items that he now saying that he reviewed. So I may let Ms. Brewer speak to that on that better, but we may have a Richardson issue for us. What did he say this down? Let me triple check if I could have a moment.
Do you want to answer the question as to when?
Yeah, it was maybe last week before trial. I emailed it to him since he wouldn't be here in person. They have the entirety of the Cellbrite extraction.
So your objection is just that a subset has been created that you wanted to ask on?
No, I don't know what was sent or done to you about it. Can you just line as to what it was? So, well, the state has now stated that this compilation wasn't provided until, I believe, last week, and the deposition was April 25th of 2023. So it appears then that it would have been after the deposition, and so this compilation wouldn't have been material that Ms. Brewer could have then questioned him on a deposition.
So if I understand what you're saying, you had his Cellbrite extraction, you just wanted to question specifically on a subset the state later created, for example, August 14, 2021 text messages?
I'm sorry, can I have just a moment to... I haven't reread this stuff. So I have a deposition. I asked him if he did any analysis of any of the material. He made it very clear that all he does is plug it in, download it to a disk, and send it away, that he does not do any analysis of it. So I don't have any problem with him, the items coming in through him. It's really him explaining an analysis of the material, because he said that wasn't part of his job.
I guess it depends on what the analysis is, right? If he's going to say, this is how I pull it, and this is from that phone, that kind of stuff.
If that's exactly the deposition from my memory, all he does is plug the phone in. Once it opens up with the correct password, he downloads it to a disk. He does not open the disk. He does not review the material. He sends the disk to the law enforcement. So the objection is about his analysis of the data that he did not review prior to the demo. And then he told me in the demo he doesn't review. That's not part of his job.
Yeah, I mean, analysis is still vague to me. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying when you say analysis. I mean, there's some analysis that he does. But I guess we don't.
How would he have verified what text messages came from the phone? Given that he didn't bring a disk of the data? That's what she's...
I'm sorry, you're saying he doesn't even know if those texts came from the phone?
Right. If his testimony was that he didn't in any way analyze the data that came from the phone, it goes on to news report or whatever, and then that's provided to someone else, and you couldn't speak to what was on the disk. I think that's what they're saying.
So do you have a response to that?
I mean, the way Cellbrite works is, yes, you plug it into a machine, but the program is Cellbrite. He opens it, he views it, and then he takes the whole Cellbrite and turns it into a disk that's then sent. So he retains the copy of the Cellbrite that he has in his records with FDLE.
So are we still arguing about authentication?
Pardon?
We're still arguing about authentication? Like he can't know if that came out the report unless the state gave a subset of the data later and said, did this come from your report?
No, he might be able to do that, but I'm saying in his deposition, that's not what he said his role was. It's never the analysis of the data. It's always just the extraction of it.
So you'd have no objection if you wanted to authenticate the entire Cellbrite report. But because the state took a smaller sampling of that and said, this is what, did this come from that phone? I think that's all we're doing right now.
Yes, sir.
That's your objection?
No, Judge, I'm not objecting to information that might have come from that. I'm objecting to his analysis of information because he told me that's not what he does.
I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know that he's going to say these text messages are angry text messages or something.
Right.
But I don't think we're going there.
Okay.
Now, this is step one. Then I go through all the text with Robert Gaines, but I have to get the hurdle of these items and reports came from this phone.
So the jury doesn't hear.
So you're just going to clarify that?
Yeah, what's UTC time? And yes, what is this? It's device info. It's text messages. It's between this phone number and that phone number.
Any other objections on that line of question?
Can we have a moment, Judge?
Sidebar.
That's right. So hold back. That's what I mean. That's just 600 section. But I think that's the issue. Correct. We don't want opinion. Where does it say that? I have to get it up for my cross. So can you read more? I think that's right. CC doesn't do that.
Okay, I think if we get there, you can make your objection. I don't think we're there yet. Okay. So. You could continue, please.
So I get, for record purposes, are 43A through D admitted into evidence?
Yes, 43D is admitted.
All right.
State's exhibit. Go ahead.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Mr. Williamson, are you able to see 43A on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Jurors? Good. All right. So what are we looking at as far as 43A? Right. And does this contain the device information of your item 4, which is the black UMX phone?
Yes.
Right. So when we're looking at this device information page, can it tell us things like phone number, model, things like that?
Yes.
All right. Does it always tell you everything?
No.
No. Let me ask you about time zone settings. What is UTC time? And to convert UTC to Eastern time in August, what would the conversion be? -4. So does Cellbrite have an option to automatically make sure that the report is placed in the correct UTC -4 time zone, so it's local time? All right. So going to 43B, I mentioned a text message. Is the device number located in 43B? And what is the device's phone number? And when you look at a timestamp like this that says 7/19/2021, 2:32:04 p.m. UTC -4, does that mean the timestamp has already been converted to local time, so in Tallahassee, Florida, in July of 2021?
Yeah.
All right. Moving to 43C. Is this the call log that was extracted from the black UMX phone from August 13th up until August 14th?
Yeah.
And this is just a subset of the wider amount of data you got. So you got the entirety of the call log since it had been in existence, right? Okay. And so this is just pulling out the 8/13 to 8/14 date range. Okay. When you see in Cellbrite direction outgoing, what does that mean? Right? And who's it being placed from? All right, so the 1134 phone number is calling the 2 phone number. Okay? So I want to use line 5 as an example. How does that change for an incoming phone call? Okay. And the from number is the number making the call to this 1134 phone. What about duration? All right, and so okay, and can you explain that? Okay. Is there any way to tell just by this report if the call actually connected or not?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Or
You can answer. No, that's okay. You can answer the question.
Yes.
Okay. And then under status, what are our options that we'll see under status?
Outgoing, missed, and outgoing, missed.
Okay. So these incoming calls, like 5 and 6, they were incoming, but they were missed.
Yeah.
All right. What is a missed call? What does that mean? All right. All right. Moving to 43D. Are these all of the text messages from the phone on August 14th, 2021?
Yes.
All right. And so when we look at this type of report, as far as how to read it, again, they'll have the direction outgoing versus incoming.
Yes.
Right. When we see participant, what does that mean?
Because either who's having multiple participants are people that are involved in it.
Okay. And so for line 2, for example, we see an outgoing text. So does that mean the 1134 is typing in the text message?
Yes.
And who would be the recipient of that text? So that would be the 407 number on line 2?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. All right, I want to move over to the extraction that you performed on State's Exhibit 14, the LG phone, your number 5. Have you had a chance to previously review some reports that were pulled from your extraction and verify that those reports came from your extraction of State's 14, the black LG phone, your item number 5?
Yes.
Okay. Did that include device information, 2 contacts, one with someone named wifey, one with someone named daughter, the call log from August 13th to 14th, a text message to the contact of daughter on August 13th, some installed applications, some user accounts.
Objection, compound question.
Overall, go ahead.
Some application usage from on August 14th, and the device event log from August 13th to August 14th.
Yes.
Did it also include text messages from August 13th to August 14th with the contact named wifey?
Yes.
Right. And are those reports, and they're labeled 44A through 44L, a fair and accurate representation of the data that was extracted from State 14, the black LG phone, your item 5? I would move 45A through L into evidence.
Objection on
Judge, if I may have a moment.
States Exhibit 44A through L are omitted.
44, I may have said 45 earlier, that was wrong. It's 44A through L. Permission to publish?
You may.
Okay, Mr. Williamson, are you able to see 44A on your screen?
Yes.
All right. So are we looking at the same thing that we looked at for the other phone, and this is the device information that was pulled?
Yes.
Similar to the other phone, I guess, scratch that question. What's an MS ISDN number? Okay. And what's the cell phone number of this cell phone? Okay. And this detected a phone model of the LG.
Yes.
Okay. So going to 44B, with contacts, are Cellbrite able to pull a contact card that someone has?
Yes.
And when it says name wifey, who input wifey into it? Was that you?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
All right. Overruled as to that question.
How is a contact name created?
Usually by
Okay. And what was the phone number for the mobile phone number for wifey? Going to 44C. Is this another contact, this time for someone named daughter? And what's the phone number associated with daughter? The 2647955, is that a number that you're familiar with from your extraction of the Apple iPhone? Oh. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. All right, 44D, we have a call log. So when looking at call logs, does Cellbrite pull in the contact name that's listed if there is one listed in the phone?
Yes.
I want to ask you about what this means. On line 84, it says 2, and it's that wifey contact, but there's a *67 in front of the phone number. What does that mean? Okay. How does Cellbrite pull a number? Is it the dial digits that come up or something else?
Yes.
All right, 44F, looking at a text message. When we see participants, what does that mean? All right. And you at the house, how do we know what number is saying you at the house? And that means the owner of the 0732 phone number. All right. And it was to the daughter? All right. And again, the timestamp has been converted to show the correct local time for August in Florida.
Yes.
All right. With installed applications, can Cellbrite pull information about when something was installed, purchase date, that type of thing?
Yes.
All right. And are these two that were pulled out installed applications that from this phone?
Yes.
Okay. Going to 44H. Can Cellbrite also pull some user account information if you have an application that has a user ID associated with it?
Yes.
All right. And do we see a user ID for both Gmail and Brickhouse Security?
Yes.
And the username, what is the username for both? Okay. All right. 44I. What would be an application's usage log for a particular app that Cellbrite can pull? All right. And what does the additional information provide under type? All right. And when it says action launch, what does that mean? Right. Going to the application usage log for Brickhouse now on August 14th. Is this the similar format, but now we're just looking at a separate application? Going to 44K. What's, as far as the application usage log, is this going to be every single application that was used, the full log between August 14th, and I can pull it down at midnight, through August 14th at 2 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. So the first event is at what time? So just after midnight on August 14th? Okay. And what was that? All right. So is there kind of like computer language for when an event is logged in a phone? All right. Moving to 44L, did Cellbrite also pull a device event log? And what's a device event log? Okay. What about power on?
Yes.
Right. What about power off?
Yes.
Right. So if we see a power on event on line 8, does that mean the phone would have been turned off prior to that?
Yes.
If the phone is being unlocked, does that mean that it's powered on?
Yes.
We see in this exhibit a bunch of unlocked, like events that say unlocked. But it doesn't appear there are any events that say locked. Do you know why that would be? And if it does, is that not logged on the event log? Okay. All right. And then you mentioned that it can extract text messages. is this going to be what we're looking at in, let's see which one this is, 44E, the text messages from August 13th, 2021 through August 14th, 2021 with the contact wifey.
Yes.
All right, finally, I want to talk to you about the Apple iPhone that you extracted. Were you able to get a full extraction from your item number 2, the Apple iPhone?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review the device info page from your extraction of the Apple iPhone? Okay. Do you want me to just email you to see, or do you want to do the full CD to see it? Okay. Just trying to see. Actually, here I have an idea. I might be able to share with just you. Okay. Can you see what's on your screen, Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Right. Can you take a look at it and tell me if that's the device information paid or report from the Apple iPhone extraction? I'd move 45 into evidence.
No objection.
State's Exhibit number 45 is submitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
All right. Mr. Wellington, are you able to see that still?
Yes.
Okay. So for this Apple iPhone, were you able to get a phone number from it?
Yes.
All right. And what was the phone number? going back to 44C from the phone we just looked at, the LG phone. What's the phone number for daughter? All right, so the Apple iPhone that you extracted and analyzed has the phone number that the contact daughter was in the LG phone.
Objection, same objection we discussed earlier. Same objection we discussed at sidebar.
That's overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. What about the Apple ID? What's an Apple ID? Okay. And what was the Apple ID for this phone? Right. And we also see the model the model of the phone. All right. So this was, you did this extraction in what time? What year, I guess I should say? Sure. Okay. So 2022, you performed the extraction. At that point in time, are you aware on what model iPhone was out with at that time? Okay. Do you know how old or young iPhone 8s would be? Okay. You might not know a specific year, do you know if it's an older model or a newer model? Okay. So 8 would be an older model. Would 8 be an older model? Yes. Okay. I don't have anything further at this time.
Any cross?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Yep. Go.
Hello, Mr. Williamson. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So I have some questions for you. So the state on your direct testimony asked you several questions that use the word...
It's just on your screen right now. I need to move them over so everybody can see. There you go. Okay.
All right, Mr. Williamson, how's that? You can still hear me okay? Okay, great. So on your direct examination, the state was asking you questions about your analysis and did you analyze this, did you analyze that? But at the end of the day, for your work on these cell phones, it's simply an extraction of the data from the cell phones onto a disk. Is that right? Yes. And so, you're rarely, if ever, asked to actually analyze the data that is extracted from a cell phone. Correct? And in fact, in this case, oh, I'm sorry. Did you finish your answer? Okay, I just didn't want to interrupt you. And in fact, in this case, you didn't do any analysis of the data that was extracted from these cell phones, correct?
Now, these cell phones that you extracted, you don't know the people that were involved with these cell phones, right? Don't know anything about their relationships. 2 of the cell phones were Androids, correct? And so that is what's comprised in your first report of October 7th of 2021. Sure, if you have it in front of you. And that sort of extraction was basically a user dump, correct? The UMX phone was the one that was a user dump. The file system extraction. Yes, sir. And do you have a copy of your deposition transcript that might refresh your recollection? And then go into the LG phone. That was a physical dump, right? Okay, and that's where you can get everything that was from the beginning in the memory until the time the phone is taken. And then your other 2 reports, those concentrated on an Apple iPhone. That's right? Judge, if I may have a moment?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Williamson, can you hear me again? Okay, great. So these different pages and items that the state showed you on your direct testimony, you weren't provided these items until about a week ago. Is that correct? Via email? Okay. And you had a deposition in this case on April 25th of this year. Is that correct? Sure. That's okay. It's on the very front page of your deposition transcript. And you only extract data from phones that are given to you, correct? You only make extractions of cell phones that are given to you. Yes, sir. So you don't go out and try to find other phones to extract data from. You didn't receive any phones that belonged to Jerry Moore, correct? So you didn't do any extractions on any cell phones that would have belonged to Jerry Moore. Is that right? So then same questions as it pertains to any cell phones from a Jermel Crumby. No cell phones that you received were any that belonged to him, right? Just these 3 cell phones. Just these 3 cell phones are the ones that you extracted data from. Thank you, Mr. Williamson. No other questions.
Any redirect, Ms. Fox?
Just briefly.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Williamson, is your role more you do the physical extractions, you get the data that you can off the phones, it's sent back to law enforcement, and they can decide what's relevant to their case? Because you don't know any facts of the case or what would or wouldn't be relevant. Okay. I don't have anything further. I appreciate it, and have a great rest of your vacation.
If I could just have you hold on for a moment, Mr. Williamson, is that okay? Can you just hang out for a second? Okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, jury, if we could, we'll go ahead and take our lunch break a little bit early, and then we'll have you back here at 1 o'clock if that works. And so, of course, during that time, you're free to go about your personal affairs, but please just don't discuss the case or do any research regarding the case, and we'll get started again at 1 o'clock. Thank you. All rise for the jury, please. So thanks, Mr. Williams. I just had one question on what you looked at since your deposition. Is that true that you did look at some stuff since your deposition that you didn't have before your deposition? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And so did you look at anything since your deposition that you hadn't in turn provided to the prosecutor's office? In other words, was it kind of repackaged Cellbrite data that you had already provided? Does that make sense? Okay, so they didn't give you any new information. Is that correct? From what you gave them? And what did you give them back from that? What they provided you those subsets, as you said. Then what did you give them back? Anything? Or you just said yes? Okay. Does either side have any more questions for Mr. Williamson on that issue?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, is this just a proffer?
This is purely for purposes of any potential Richardson hearing. If there's any type of discovery violation, that's what I'm trying to ascertain.
And so, because of that, would Your Honor mind if I leave the questioning to Mr. Williamson?
No, that's what I asked. If you want any questions, go ahead. I think you'll have to do it from that podium just so he can hear better. But.
Hi, Mr. Williamson. This is Brooke Brewer. I met you at your deposition back in April of 2023. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, and we had a conversation about what your role would be in this case and what your job was, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I asked you if you know how your program works. Do you remember that? In terms of how the program that breaks the phone open with the passcode. Okay, and then along that line of questioning, did I ask you if you just plug the phone in and boom, it gives you the information? Okay, and that basically once you get the passcode, all you do is the extraction, which is, in your words, basically just dumps the contents of the phone and creates the report so that it's readable by the submitting agency. Okay? And that's what you did in this particular case. Is that right? You didn't actually look through any of the materials. You just downloaded it and sent it back. Is that right? Okay. And then I asked you specifically about once you get the extraction, if you look through the materials, and your response was, not unless I'm asked to. Is that fair? And then I asked you, how often are you asked to look through the material? And you told me, rarely, if ever. Is that fair? Okay. And in this case, you had 2 reports, and you weren't asked to look through the material. Is that right? That's right. So not prior to your depo, it was after our depo. Is that right? Okay. And you weren't given any facts about the case, right? That's common for you, right? And I asked, is it too simplistic to say that you just plug in the phone and let the computer do the work? Okay. Your Honor, that's all the follow-ups that I have.
Okay, anything on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Williamson, I'm going to let you go now. I do appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Is there any argument as to that issue? Any argument as to the potential, I guess, for a Richardson issue?
No, Your Honor, at this point, there isn't. We're just laying the foundation that he was asked the questions about whether he analyzed the material. He wasn't asked to analyze the material. He said that rarely, if ever, happens. I was given no indication during the deposition that he would be asked that information. And so that's why it was a little bit shocking when that happened today. But there is no additional argument. I just wanted to place that on the record.
Well, I mean, it's my job to do, if you're alleging a discovery violation, to do a Richardson inquiry. So that's, I mean, we can't just put it on the record and then let me not do anything with it. I got to do something with it, right? Are you saying there's a discovery violation?
I don't know, Judge. I don't, that's what I originally thought. That's why we approached. At this point, I don't think what he went into rises to that level. But I did want to be clear of what was said and what we anticipated, and that he's given additional information, at least from our perspective, prior to trial.
Well, I mean, the state can say, here are all the witnesses that the different categories. These are the witnesses. And then in the meantime, the state can talk to those witnesses and kind of get their feel for the case and kind of bounce ideas off those witnesses, right? Like, yes. And I kind of think it's closer to that is what happened, rather than Mr. Williams had created an entirely new data set that totally sandbagged you guys. I don't think that's what happened.
I would agree, Judge. And that's what I'm saying. It's not, in my opinion, at this point, now that I've questioned them.
Okay. I think that could also be my finding as well, that there hasn't been a discovery violation, and that there's been any new material that the state has come across that they did not disclose to the defense. And I thought the questions, I think, are kind of in line with the foundational type questions of this is how the program works, this is what the data is that we're looking at, not this is what the data could mean, like as I guess the state might anticipate with some other witness.
Yes, I agree, Judge. The distinction that I was making is that I was told in depo that he did not review anything that was submitted back to the agency, and that he rarely does that. I mean, that's why we were shocked with his testimony. I'm not saying that he can't do that, so I don't think it rises to the level of discovery violation. I'm just informing the court as to why we made the objection.
Okay, thank you. Anything else then? We should be back at 1. Does that work?
Yes, sir. Works for me. Yes, Judge.
All right. And we can go off the record, but just real quick, State, since I think we're still on your case, what do you anticipate happening for the rest of the afternoon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 witnesses that you kind of set your sights on getting done with today. Are you planning on calling all 6 of those people?
That'd be my hope, and I see it on schedule yesterday. Miss Bowen and Miss Knudsen are really quick. I would think like maybe Miss Bowen will probably be like less than 10 minutes.
You said Knudsen, like Karen Knudsen, is that?
Yes, I think
Okay.
she pronounced it with a K though, Ken Knudsen.
Oh, Knudsen. Oh, gotcha, sorry.
She'll be a little bit lengthier, but not more than like 15 minutes. Detective Godwin, well, he's deputy now. He's part of the bailiff's unit. He's here in the courthouse. Officer Martinez is also pretty quick, maybe 10 minutes. And Deputy Godwin is quick as well. So the only lengthy witness I have is Will Black for firearms, and then Jermel Crumby. But I don't think either of them will be particularly lengthy. So I'm hoping to get through all of them.
Okay, thanks. That helps. All right, anything else before we're not on the record, but before we depart each other? All right.
Yes, sir. You want us back at 1 o'clock, same time as the jury?
Yeah, if we're ready to go at 1, that'd be good. Thanks.
Yes, sir. And I can approach the clerk with the exhibits.